We sing the Lord's song in a strange land.
All right.
Would you help me announce this, the title of this very short exposition to your neighbor. Turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor, by any means necessary. That wasn't the right neighbor. They're not tenacious enough. Find you another neighbor. Look at him dead in the eye and say, by any means necessary. By any means necessary. We honor our brother, our ancestor, Brother Malcolm X, also known as El Haj Malik El Shabazz. We should honor him because we, as a people, have been deprived of him.
All right.
And I think that's a truism. We've been deprived of him. If we're honest, most of us don't really know that much about him. Most of what we know about him has been misconstrued. It has been the result of a mishandling of a life that was well lived.
All right.
And it is very unfortunate that we continue to, in our own way, perpetuate this kind of ignorance. The truth of the matter is Malcolm X was our greatest moral leader.
All right.
And I say that without fear of contradiction. Our greatest moral leader. Those who followed him day and night, the FBI and CIA, in case you didn't know, he was followed the majority of his time, majority of his life, from the time he left prison at the age of 27 to the time he was murdered in 65. And every day of his life he was recorded, he was followed, he was harassed. And the people who harassed him concluded that in comparison to Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X was a saint.
All right.
So we owe it to ourselves to elevate the status of Malcolm. He should be the last person that we honor today, but that's okay, I understand. We are in love with Dr. King. We're in love with the vision of possibly living in a world where white people will love us. Where they will love our broad noses and our big lips, and where potentially perhaps we can integrate ourselves and marry them and mix our blood, and maybe perhaps the Africanness that we hate in ourselves will be washed away by the Europeans, the Europeanness that we love in them so much. There are people who try to cram Malcolm into spaces where he does not belong, because as much as we don't know about him, in the time that we're living in, people are trying to lay claim to him. They're trying to push him into spaces where he does not belong. Malcolm X is not hands up, don't shoot.
All right.
Malcolm X is hands up because we will shoot back.
All right. Come on now.
Malcolm X is not for the faint of heart. He's not for the weary. He's not for the weak-minded. He's not for the feeble of heart. Which is to say, if you don't love the people, if you're not willing to die for the people, don't pick up Malcolm. Right. You stay with Martin. If you're going to love the people when it's convenient, if you're going to love the people as long as it's profitable, if you're going to love the people as long as the paycheck is coming in, you stay with Martin. But if you're willing to die for the people, if you love them enough to put your life on the line every day, then Malcolm is your patron ancestor as he is mine. I'm not trying to make it hard for you. How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land?
All right.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, but America is a strange land.
All right. Yeah.
I know you don't like to hear that. I know you don't want me to say that. But if America was indeed not foreign to us, if it was not strange to us, Brother Michael Brown would not have laid in the street for 3 hours before they called an ambulance for him. If America was indeed not a strange land, after they murdered Trayvon Martin, somebody would have called the ambulance to pick up his body and to try to revive him instead of watching him die and lay in his own blood. If America was indeed not a foreign land, no hair on the head of Sandra Bland would have ever been harmed. They would have made every effort to ensure that she was handled with great care. But in fact, America is a strange land. If it were not a strange land, there wouldn't be a racial problem in America. So how do we sing the Lord's songs? How do we sing the songs of freedom and justice?
Yeah.
When Beyonce takes to the stage at the Super Bowl, and as long as she's singing about bootylicious and being crazy in love, everything is cool.
All right.
But when she makes up in her mind that she's going to sing in this strange land a song about freedom, a song about justice, suddenly it's a problem. I thought y'all would like that. That's all right. How do we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? This is not your land. Yes, your blood, your sweat, and your tears are indeed invested in it. You own a part of it, but you can't lay claim to it. If you could lay claim to it, you wouldn't have needed a 13th and a 14th and a 15th Amendment to the Constitution to make you a U.S. citizen. When somebody calls you an African, you get an attitude. My Lord. You don't like to be called or be told that you're an African, but go outside when it's raining and see if that weave holds up. That's Africa calling you home. Whether you like it or not, that's Africa telling you that you belong to me. And I get it's not. I mean, it's something to laugh about, but this is serious. This is Africa. This is the universe's way of telling us and declaring to us that we were indeed fearfully and wonderfully made.
Mama, yes, sir.
It doesn't matter that your big hips and your big lips look good on Kim Kardashian, but when they're on you, it's inappropriate and you need to cover up. That doesn't matter. God made you beautiful. God made you wonderful. And you were birthed on the continent of Africa, whether you want to accept that or not. Let me ask you a question. If a pregnant kitten walked in here, walked into the kitchen, crawled into the oven and had kittens, are those kittens suddenly biscuits? Because they were born in an oven?
Come on now.
I mean, this is serious. If a dog, a pregnant dog, walked in here today and jumped into the trash can and gave birth to those puppies, are the puppies trash or are they puppies?
Right.
So how in the world do you declare and make up in your mind that because you were born in America that you can't be African? How do you make up in your mind that because your mother gave birth here on a land where they raped her and she had to fight for the right to vote, and where your father was lynched and castrated, you make up in your mind that you want to lay claim to a nation that is founded on the genocide of the red man, the enslavement of the black man, the rape of the black woman, and this is the land that you want to claim and lay claim to.
Mama.
When the richest land on the face of the earth is found on the continent that you deny. The most mineral-rich land on the face of the earth is found on a continent that you don't want to claim. Where the people who speak the most languages, where Africa is filled with 54 countries with a plethora of languages and cultural identities, and you got the nerve to tell somebody that when you go, you can't go to an HBCU because that's not diverse enough. The devil is a lie. The most diverse place I've ever been was with my people. All right.
Yes, sir.
There's all kinds of black people. Yeah. They like all kinds of things. They come in all kinds of sizes and shapes. But you made up in your mind that if a white person is not learning in a classroom with you, that's not diversity. And the slave masters who have carried you away into a strange land are entertaining themselves.
Mama. Say it, David.
With your confusion. You cannot, as Malcolm said, hate the roots of the tree without hating the tree itself.
All right.
You can't hate Africa without hating yourself.
Mama.
You can't hate your ancestors. You can't hate the fact that your people were brought here in chains and not hate yourself. You can't despise the fact that your people were brought here in the holes of ships without, at some level, despising the part of you that came with them. And so as we honor Brother Malcolm, we also present ourselves with an opportunity to lay claim to the fullness of our identities, to lay claim to the truth of who we are. This is why we have been deprived of Brother Malcolm, of a positive representation of him in the public consciousness. This is why there has not been a thorough analysis of him, because if you read and listen to Malcolm, you cannot help but love yourself.
Right.
You got to listen to Martin, because if you listen to Martin, you'll come out loving the white man. And that ain't, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But you can't help but listen to Malcolm and not fall in love with black people.
Yeah.
You can't help but listen to Malcolm and fall in love with the cadence and the rhythm that God has naturally given us, that is synchronized to the rising of the sun and the setting of the moon and the rising of the tides. You're the original man and don't even know it.
Come on now.
And when somebody says that, it gets quiet because it's uncomfortable. Because you've been told that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and he took dust and made man in his image, and somehow dust is white in your mind. Never seen dirt that wasn't brown or black or color. I've never seen it. Never experienced it. And this is why we must lay claim to Brother Malcolm. This is why we must love him. This is why we must love the most radical parts of ourselves. If you don't know it, we've been marched away from our homeland. As Psalm 137 tells us, we find ourselves in a strange land, in a strange place. Our tormentors demanding of us mirth, demanding of us songs. That's why you got to be careful of the music that you listen to. It was mirth for them, but for these people, these songs were replete with meaning. What is the meaning of Brother Malcolm to us? Well, you have to decide that for yourself. But I refuse to accept the conclusion that, and he's my brother, Brother Spike Lee tried to tell us that Brother Malcolm went to Mecca in 1964 and somehow found white Muslims there and had tea with some white people and suddenly believed that the world could be better. It's a lie. Malcolm went to Mecca in 1959. He preceded his teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, there. Didn't want to go. But Elijah Muhammad said, no, I'm sending you to go. He's seen white Muslims before. He'd seen white people before. Yes, he was transformed, but his transformation was not because of white people in Mecca, but because of black people right here in the United States.
That's good.
You want us to be convinced that white people changed him? If that was the case, tell me why he came back here not singing "We Shall Overcome," not willing to be beaten, flogged in the streets for a public show, for a public display, so that television channels could pick it up and hopefully gain the sympathy of white people. That's not what he did.
Come on,
but he came back to America and started drawing up papers to sue the United States of America before the UN and the World Court. Was planning a black nationalist political party. Was organizing a black revolutionary underground army. And that's why there's no monument to him on a national mall. That's why he'll never have a national holiday. And that is why we must honor him today. Amen. But when we honor him, we honor the best of ourselves. When we honor him, we sing the Lord's song in a strange place. When we honor him, we declare our humanity in the face of inhumanity. When we honor him, we become the full embodiment of the dream and the vision that he had for his people. Now I'm going to sit down because I've already worn y'all out. But there's nothing wrong with having a vision for your people. Amen. There's nothing wrong with having a vision for your people. See, when we dream, we've been convinced that when we dream and when we think and when we plan, we got to include other people in our vision and our dream. We've been convinced that you got to have some white folk in it for it to be legitimate. You go to a business and there's not some white folks there, it's not a good business. Go to a school and there's no white children learning in the school, it's not a good school. Religiously, we as a people flock to churches where the minister doesn't look like us, where they singing your songs and worshiping in the way that you worship. But ain't nobody running up to hear Pastor Lindsay on a Sunday morning. There, we're not packing out the Giant Steps Church with our European compatriots, are we? Right. It's nothing wrong with having a vision and having a dream that includes your people, that sees them better off on their own, standing on their own 2 feet, building their own businesses, running their own lives, governing their own affairs in the name of God. Oh, man. That is our destiny. That is our history. Not as slaves, but as kings and queens. Every last one. Yes, every last one of you. The original man on the face of the earth. Everywhere you step, you're God over it. Yes. Every place you walk, every place your foot trod, you're sovereign over it. Be who you called to be. How will we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? My God. By any means necessary. Amen.